It's the first. It's the first. It's the first episode. It's the first. Might be your last.
But I'm looking for my first.
First episode podcast. Welcome to First Episode Podcast, a cherry popping debrief of your next binge-worthy television series. I'm your host, Motown Maurice.
And I'm your co-host, Atara G.
And I'm your guest host, Raj Jawa.
Today we're cherry popping Gen V.
From the world of the boys comes Gen V, which explores the first generation of superheroes to know that their superpowers are from Compound V. These heroes put their physical and moral boundaries to the test, competing for the school's top ranking.
Genres are sci-fi, action, adventure, and comedy.
So, y'all, there is a lot to extrapolate from this show. My impressions, first off, are very negative. And the reason for that is I have a big problem with tokenism. I have a serious issue with like cultural mockery. And we get that right off the jump. I honestly wanted to turn it off. I asked Atara a couple times, like, you want to continue watching this? Because the unnecessary black jokes are deplorable. Oh, first black this, and is there such thing as black Amish? I cannot stand that. It's a form of like Hollywood narcissism too. It's as if this character is not normal and you have to make a joke out of their appearance to normalize them.
It's a continuance of affirming that anybody who isn't Caucasian is other.
Yeah.
Is the other. Hence, African American, Asian American, Japanese American, Indian American.
Yeah. They're marginalizing the characters. I have big issues with it. There are a series of programs that I just won't continue watching because of those type of references, which are just unnecessary.
For sure.
I wasn't surprised to see this in Gen V, considering The Boys, because while we don't see that in The Boys too much.
That's The Boys did it very subtly.
They did it subtly, but it's still there. And the themes around The Boys are just horrendous. So I wasn't surprised to see a continuance of that kind of behavior in Gen V, but on a more in-your-face
It's a
fashion.
lot lazier, though. With The Boys, it's very crude and brutal in so many ways and disrespectful, but some of it was subtle or somewhat having innuendos about it. But they just lazy first black stupidness jokes in Gen V.
I sometimes think that it being subtle is even worse.
This might not be a topic of discussion that you, Raj, noticed, but do you see the perspective that I'm coming from?
Oh, absolutely. I did not pick up on this, but I do absolutely see your perspective. I think the best case example, and I'm not saying this is what they did, but I think the best case example is would be to show the sort of white person ignorance when the default is this white supremacy attitude where you don't know anything about any other cultures. I think that is an unfortunate situation of Americans, especially. I think there's white Europeans or whites in other countries that are a little more rounded to their cultural, contemporaries, people that lived around them, and surely still racist people. Not saying that there's not. But as I said, that is clearly a best case scenario, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I do think that this most likely comes from just a place of ignorance, of like white supremacy is the default paradigm we live under. So if it's not white, it must be foreign, it must be other. And thus, like I say, I think the best-hearted individuals who would do something like this would be like, oh, I'm just trying to show how ignorant white people are. But I think there probably are, one, better ways to do it, and two, it most likely is just coming from a place of just strict ignorance rather than like, I'm really aware of what I'm doing with this right now.
I agree, Raj. In addition to it being hard to watch, in terms of the story, it just affirmed for Marie that she didn't belong in that university. Those kind, having to be faced with those kind of jokes. She already was going in to the university feeling like she didn't belong there. And then to have these things said to her already affirmed that feeling.
Absolutely.
It's the tokenism syndrome, which is just bad. And you hit it right on the point, Raj, with the level of ignorance. And ignorance is just not funny, especially when it comes to cultures.
And I also don't think being ignorant of something can no longer be used as a reason to give someone a pass. And I'm not saying you were giving them a pass, but I'm saying in the past, you know, I mean, I went to El Segundo High School. I could not be any more other in any other place than El Segundo High School. And the jokes I had to listen to, we won't even go down that hole. But you can't, when I would go complain to the principal about something, the excuse was, oh, they don't know better. Oh, it's just a Halloween costume. Oh, it's just, you know, they're just being funny. So using ignorance as a reason to excuse someone from inappropriate behavior.
Oh, and I've always taken a strong, I guess a strong humanist stance or a strong anti-racist stance, just in terms of, I mean, I don't know what my thoughts were necessarily before this, but like 2001, the 9/11 attacks, obviously in the face of that, Americans were very confused and racist about who was the enemy. And I don't even mean politically, just like thinking any Indian guy with a turban is a terrorist, any brown person is a terrorist. And that it you know, ties into, you know, similar to me being in school. I think a lot of people either didn't know or didn't care. It didn't matter. There's a lot of people that will just throw around terms that are really, really heinous. And they don't think about it. And we're kind of seeing that, you know, all the time. You know, Muslims remain a bit of an underclass, not underappreciated is not the word, but under respected class in a way maybe other races, other groups have been in the past. But right now it's really hitting Muslim people in terms of people not seeing them as human beings. And it's pretty dark. So I think it all ties into to kind of what is the default paradigm and how is that affecting the people who fall outside that default?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's almost it's as if anyone who falls outside of that default, while they're human, but they're not human enough to matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't want to stay on this too long.
Definitely not. Sure.
But Hollywood, the writers, the creators, their mindset is that we're in a post-racial society, so everything under that is a joke, or within that is a joke. And it's just not funny.
Yeah, like it's late night television. You can pretty much say anything on late night, but no, some things you can't. Some things are still untouchable.
It's disrespectful.
It
It
is.
really is. And just do better. Do better, please.
Absolutely.
Just do better. Aside from that, there are some fantastic themes to address.
Are there?
Are there? Let's put on our happy voices.
Who would like to start out between the two?
Raj, I will give you the mantle.
Okay, sure. I think, I mean, my themes are a little broad spanning, but I think the main one is this idea of like social credit and social media. Obviously, social media is much more the in-your-face theme. Like we're seeing it with Marie not getting into the school concentration she wants because she doesn't have a social media presence. It's really the kind of defining thread of seemingly this universe, maybe also the boys' universe as well, is this: your popularity determines your status. Your social media, your following, what you do is where you're going to go in this world. It's not necessarily a meritocracy, which the main character kind of believes. It's like, oh, you know, we're just about saving people and fighting crime. And that reality really kind of smacks her in the face by the end of this episode, unfortunately, even. So, yeah, I think the idea of social credit, hierarchies, these are all ideas that are like deeply, I think, seemingly tied into at least this first episode, and I presume the show in general.
Yeah, Marie really wants to be a hero, and she really wants to save people. I think, you know, we find that she really wants to be a hero and save people just because of what happened to her family. And she wants to save face with her sister. But I think she starts to realize what being a hero really means. Like, being a hero doesn't mean you're always making the greatest decisions all the time.
Absolutely. But I would also argue, too, it kind of was thrown back in her face in a way, because though she did end this episode doing the right thing, she actually will wind up being the scapegoat for the more popular students, that, let's say, the football star kids, or whatever you want to, however you want to parallel it to our world. These are the star students, and they left the situation like cowards and left someone to die. She did the right thing, and yet she's going to take the fall because, one, she's got a criminal record already. She's not popular. No one basically cares about her. So we can put this all on you. All the stink can go on you, and our star students can continue being stars, and no one's going to talk about it or question it or care.
Absolutely. And this is a scenario which is parallel to real life. We see this happen all the time, where a group of kids go out, everyone gets in trouble, 4 of them get sent home, 1 gets thrown in the bus and gets down to the station, and everything goes on this kid. Absolutely. We see that happen all the time.
Absolutely. We talked about, I actually wrote from an ABC article, because it was so specific, the time when a defense team used the term affluenza to defend their client who had done, I don't exactly remember the case, but the attorney had said, I'll read the quote from ABC's. Miller had said Couch was raised by his parents with no reasonable boundaries. He'd said the teen was taught by his parents that if he hurt someone, he could send him money. Miller, though not the first to use the term affluenza, said Couch's parents also taught him to an extent that other people were beneath him and have no worth.
Wow.
So affluenza is what, the belief that if you're affluent enough, you can just pay off your problems?
Basically, and I think what's going to be the unfortunate thing is we're going to see that play out. I mean, look at Trump and his 34 things that he's been indicted or convicted of.
I was trying to set up a Republican joke as you were saying that, because it's funny.
For sure. And that's the thing. He's going to, maybe he's going to get charged. I mean, he's going to get charged. He's going to get some kind of penalty, but he's not going to go to jail. He's not going to get any kind of penalty that anyone else in his position would. And, I think that's a big thing. I think what's kind of causing, I won't stay on this too long, but what's kind of causing a collapse in society is that the people that we see illustrating the example, the rich people, are not holding to the same standards they expect us to. Mm-hmm. So we talk about climate change, and it's okay if Bill Gates uses his private jet and does environmental damage because he's going to a climate conference, blah, 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 to do the right thing. But he's actually hurting the environment in a way that many of us can't. And if he just set the example for him and his other rich people that, yes, I'm good enough, or I'm a big enough person or whatever to fly normally with everyone else. Mm-hmm. It all trickles down from there. The fact that the people who we look up to, whether it be Trump or Bill Gates, not people to look up to either way, but I'm just saying, the people we look up to aren't held to the same standard we are. So what do we care about the standards anymore? As people, that starts to erode our own trust in what the system is going to do.
Well, a lot of the standards are created to benefit them.
Of course.
For example, these big corporations, they incorporate fraud into their budgets. They'll do something wrong and they're like, if we get caught, we'll just pay the fine. But if we do something wrong, we can't afford the fine and we end up in jail.
Absolutely.
But half the time we're not even doing something wrong. We're just using our neighbor's address so that our kid can get into a better school.
100%.
And then now you're in jail for 100 years,
Yeah. No,
ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, there is much more persecution of poor people doing financial crimes of I'm just trying to get my kid into a better school than the persecution of rich people doing financial crimes at all.
Yeah, the survival of the masses is being criminalized. How we're trying to survive under capitalism, they're criminalizing those actions.
And I think the worst part of it too is it's kind of like the snake eating itself. Is the reason people are trying to get their kids into schools that maybe are not in their neighborhoods is because all that money is being sucked out of those neighborhoods and put into other neighborhoods through privatization, through voucher programs, through all this stuff where we used to kind of treat everything as a society. Every neighborhood should be as good as the next one. Mm-hmm. And we kind of lost that idea. I think maybe with the growth of the suburbs, we kind of lost the idea that we're all interconnected. I mean, I don't like driving. I mean, I've been driving for many years. I don't like driving just because, though most people are fine drivers, normal drivers. It's the few assholes that like have to get ahead or have to whatever and creating lanes or whatever. And it's like, they don't understand that they're creating the traffic. They're creating the problem by being poor drivers, by not follow. If we treated driving like driving a train, like we're all in a line, we just I think driving would be a lot better. But instead, we treat it as an individualist. That's kind of our all American thing. Individualism and capitalism has kind of sucked a lot of the life and the neighborhood, the community out of our existences here.
You touched on it perfectly. The problem with this society is individualism. We no longer recognize how we're connected to each other and how my own actions, whether I live in the same house with someone or not, impacts the next person.
Absolutely.
Well said. In regards to your themes, Atara, what are the problems that are the women going through?
I immediately noticed the parallels between the superpowers that Emma and Marie have and the issues that young women have to deal with in society, and sometimes the coping mechanisms women use to deal with these issues. But before I get into that, I do want to say that I don't understand why Marie's parents would give her compound V, or why any parent would give their child compound V, knowing that there's so much uncertainty around what superpower they might end up with or how it would impact their child.
I agree with you. I also think that's pretty, in some ways, common. It may be a parallel to parents that project or put things on their kids, whether it be ballet or piano or whatever. I think maybe this is a heightened example of like, this is a parent pushing something we think is the best thing for you on you. And yeah, we may not necessarily know the consequences.
Yeah, it's the evolution of a soccer mom or something.
Sure. Like yeah, that seems like the most plausible example, because I did not think about this until you brought it up. But yeah, it's true. And that's the most logical explanation I can think of, is like it's a parallel to like, you're going to play baseball now. I want a baseball daughter.
That's a good perspective. And they definitely paid for there definitely were consequences to their choice. And to the audience, you'll see that in the first opening scene. Basically, Marie, this is the other thing that I noticed right away. Marie has the power to control blood. So if anyone has watched Avatar: The Last Airbender,
she's a bloodbender.
She's a bloodbender, which like blew my mind. I was like, wow.
I want you to touch on the parallels of the character who's suffering from bulimia or anorexia. Those parallels, both of those, you touched on that so well.
Emma. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I don't think this character is suffering from bulimia. But her superpower definitely reflects an aspect of bulimia. If you remember the scene where she is hooking up with that guy who's a fan of her YouTube show.
Mm-hmm. And this character has the ability to change her size.
She can shrink. Mm-hmm. And he wants her to shrink because it would be so hot. And, they're making out and he tells her how hot it would be for her to shrink. And, basically turns her into a fetish object, immediately objectifies her. And she has her own issues, which I think drives her decision to go ahead and shrink herself for this guy. And so she tells him, hey, it's not that easy for me to shrink. And then the next scene, you see her shrinking herself, and essentially she's throwing up. And every time she throws up, she gets smaller, which kind of to me was a parallel to women in this society. The ideal beauty image for women in this society is to be thin. And so women are people, especially women are always dieting or going to extreme measures to be thin. And you have some women who turn to anorexia or turn to bulimia to, get to that thinness. So I just saw a real strong parallel between Emma's ability to get small by throwing up and society's pressure on women to be thin. Hence, a lot of women cave to that pressure by developing eating disorders.
Yeah. I think this show does a really good job exemplifying some of the mental health issues and disorders in this superhero form. But at the same time, couldn't it be a trigger for certain people watching?
Yeah, well, while we were watching the show, I said that I was like, this should have a trigger warning, because later on we see Marie, she gets upset, she gets very angry, and she goes behind a building and she cuts herself. Cutting is a form of release for some people. It's a mental health disease, and if you're someone who suffers with that, or you're in recovery from bulimia or anorexia or other disorders where throwing up can be a trigger for yourself, watching someone throw up could be a trigger. Watching someone cut themselves could be a trigger. But again, I found it very interesting that their individual superpowers parallel some of these issues or mental health issues that many people struggle with.
It makes me wonder, yeah, for sure, because we dived into Emma's power and Marie's power, at least in this episode. I'm curious if, like, Golden Boy's power, may he rest in peace, that Golden Boy's power is also fueled by some kind of mental coping mechanism as well. We don't know. Maybe we won't know. But it's interesting, and maybe that's the kind of divining thread of all the students at the school, is kind of they're all different coping mechanisms. Because I didn't even pick up on obviously the cutting is an obviously example, but I didn't see Marie as cutting herself for self-harm until she was behind that building. That seemed like the only example where she was, I'm doing this to actually hurt myself. And maybe even being disappointed that the power came out again, because she bled out for a second and then the blood started floating. Yeah. Almost like, oh, I'm normal. But not such luck. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And you could even tie in the guy pressuring her to get small. Get small is very much like, oh, baby, you could be thinner or whatever. Yeah. It was very much tied into like that idea of him being the societal pressure and her kind of, I'm not saying it's her weakness, but caving into that pressure because she feels like she needs to or she must.
I mean, there is that narrative out there where some men are like, I got to marry a woman who's going to keep taking care of herself. So even after she bangs out 4 kids for me, she still needs to look like she's 20 years old. Like, let's not act like that doesn't exist,
Absolutely.
I have friends who have shared with me that their partners have said to me, oh, my partner wants me to lose weight. I myself have been told, oh, your body would be perfect if you just got rid of that little tummy, and I'm like, 18. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah. No, that's absurd. Yeah. But absolutely. It is, I think, very illustrative of that is he's demonstrating the societal pressure and her giving into it.
Well, on a more lighter note, my theme of choice is the heroism. As you both know, I'm working on a documentary that addresses the 12 stages of the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. And I kind of saw a little bit of that within the first 3 stages, if I can share. So the first stage is the ordinary world. It's where the story begins. The hero is often immature, inexperienced, simply going about their daily life. And then the second stage is the call to adventure. Somehow the hero receives a call to action or adventure. He or she takes upon the quest or accomplishes a task. And the third one is the refusal of the call. The hero is more interested in self-preservation and initially refuses to go on the journey. I saw that within some of the heroes, not only just Marie, but some of the stories when you got to learn a little bit about the backstory and them not sure if they want to do this and things like that. And then just how it started off with Marie in the living room with her family in an ordinary world. So it's all there. And I think it's pretty awesome that they have a university to cultivate the heroes. They should have a university for visionaries. University system, that's another conversation, but what the university system should really focus on is improving a person's finance skills, improving a person's imagination. things like that. And that's what I think you would get some of that out of God U. I think that's the name of the university. If I'm not no,
it is what they I think abbreviated to, but it has like Godkin or something. I don't know exactly, but yes, it is.
So
God
it's
U.
a very focused university, and that's what I like about the show, having that institution to really strengthen and cultivate those heroes.
Yes, our education system should be designed that way, but really it's designed to create worker bees.
I was just going to say,
Yeah,
that's
the
unfortunate
system we
thing.
have now is working exactly as it was designed to churn out worker bees.
Yeah.
That's why, the really creative, smart kids get put in a classroom for special needs because you're not someone who's going to conform.
Yeah.
Well, and it is exactly what you said. I don't know if have anything more to add. It's really just the way the system operates is not to really teach people to be entrepreneurs or to steady your finances or whatever that means. A lot of those things are a lot of the same things is entrepreneurship and taking on your own finances. Yeah, it's not what the university is designed to do. It's designed to make people who work for corporations and eventually get laid off as statistics, basically.
Yeah. Entertainment potential. I think people would want to watch this because there are amazing parallels in here. And I think that there's real creative ways of showcasing disorders and issues within teenagers, within young people. There's a lot of intrigue about that.
I don't think I'm going to watch this, though, because I don't want to watch Marie. I know what they have in store for Marie, and I'm not interested in watching that.
I mentioned why people should watch. I definitely am not interested because I'm turned off on how it began. We are committed to The Boys. We're going to continue watching The Boys, but it just put a bad taste in my mouth.
I did not feel good watching this show.
Yeah.
It did not make me feel good at all.
Yeah, and it's because you're witnessing these disorders come to life.
I love the stereotypes play out,
Yeah.
One of the reasons that I like to read or to watch entertainment is because I like escapism. I want to escape. Right. I don't want to go from a world of stereotypes to a made up world of the same stereotypes. I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy watching Emma be objectified like that. That made me really angry. I didn't enjoy, Marie having to take the fall for all, for the other kids.
It doesn't become an escape.
It doesn't become an escape. It was all too real. These things happen. People talk about it. Nothing is done about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, my hope, I doubt I'll continue watching it either, but I do hope that some of these themes we picked up on are actually what the show resolves or what is the point of the show. Because I think that's some of the difficulty of TV versus movies is the themes in movies are generally what are going to be resolved by the end of the movie. We don't 100% know what's going to happen from this show by the end of the season, and then even by the beginning of the next season to the end of that next season. So it's a complete crapshoot of writers, staying on the same page, having the same vision, having the same ideas of what they're trying to get across, in a way that, a movie is finished and it's all done and it's wrapped up, and a show kind of lives on to have a different life. It's like, who's going to screw it up? Producers, writers, director, actors, what's going to happen to this show as it goes forward? Is it even going to care about any of this thing that's pitched in episode 1 by, season 3?
I do hope that those who choose to watch this show learn something from these themes that are being shared. I hope they're able to see the parallels between the themes in this show and real life, and it has a positive impact on how they think about the world.
I'm giving it a cherry and a half. I do think the parallels are clever. I do think there's some intrigue there, but I'm not going to watch. No.
I don't even know what to give it.
I guess for me, I would probably give it about a 2. Like I enjoy it. I haven't watched The Boys either. They both feel similar. The only problem I have with both of those shows is their embrace of like extreme violence. Obviously, I think we talked about it off air that it is illustrative of real life in how brutal things are, and I think that's good in the context of the show. I just don't know if I want to keep watching because I watch news stuff that I'm like, I don't need to watch this in entertainment too.
I mean, I think it's important to see the world as it really is, and both these shows allow us to see, like, the themes and the parallels allow us to see the world as it really is if people are really interested in seeing it.
Yes.
But in terms of the cherries, I want to give it a 3 solely based on the special effects because I like special effects.
They're done well. Yeah.
Yeah.
No questions there. Yeah.
Special effects.
She was sold on the blood bending.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 3 for the blood bending.
Knew everything. It came in, yeah.
The first episode of Gen V released on Friday, September 29th, 2023. There is 1 season, 8 episodes available.
The average episode duration is 50 minutes. You can find this show on Amazon Prime, and the IMDb rating is 7.7.
I believe there's another season coming. Don't quote me on that, but I believe there is. Those are our thoughts on Gen V.
Thank you for trusting us.
We are honored to be your first.
For information about this podcast and more, please visit motelmaurice.com.